All right, welcome back to A Hill with a View. I am Moshe Hill, and I am joined today by the famous Yaakov M from the Yaakov M Show, which can be found on Spotify and on 24/6. He's also a columnist following my footsteps, doing some writing in Ami Magazine, which is great, you know, Queens Jewish Link, Ami Magazine, really connecting over here. It's fantastic. I love it. Yaakov, how you doing, man? Been a while.
I am doing great. I'm very excited to be here. I want to clarify, following in your footsteps, I'm not plagiarizing you, not like that woman from Harvard. I'm only following the concept, but not the actual things that you write, the content. But it is great to be here, Moshe. Great to be here with you.
Yes, I definitely came up with the concept of writing in articles in magazines and newspapers. So, I am a pioneer in that way. Yes, indeed.
William F. Buckley, maybe? I thought, okay, Moshe F. Buckley, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I have been on your show so many times, over the years, going back 7-8 years. We've never met in person. We've only talked to each other on social media or WhatsApp or all these different things, or on podcasts. We've had all the conversations, never met in person, but I'm finally happy to bring you into my show. And so we could talk about that. So I could be the host, and I could ask you the questions. It's so exciting.
Yes, and I have, yes, for me too. And less pressure on the prep side from my end. But the flip side is, like, I feel enormous pressure to say funny and entertaining and sharp things like you do on my show, as opposed to just asking questions and I could just sound whatever. So I'm nervous. I'll be honest. I'm under the gun.
All right.
We've never met in person, which is just crazy. It's crazy that we've never, actually. I mean, it's only these days. It couldn't have even happened 15, 20 years ago, because I feel like I know you better than some of my neighbors who I literally never see. So yeah.
Fair. I know we got to get together at some point in person. But right now, Let's talk about the topic of the day. All right.
Yes.
So the topic of the day that I would like to discuss about, because the Groyper Army got me on my first episode, so I was sucked into the audience capture for my second episode. I talked all about Israel. I'm not going to talk about Israel today, okay? People are going to think I'm an Israel first. I'm an America first guy. I want to talk about America. Let's talk about immigration in America, okay? This is a big hot topic of this past week. You have a couple of major stories coming around that all center around the topic of immigration in the United States. I think it's very important for us to engage in this, because Trump gave us the opportunity to actually talk about immigration in the United States when he closed the border. Now that the border is closed, we could actually start to talk more about what's been happening inside the United States, not just people who are coming in, but people who are actually here. So we got 3 stories that I want to jump in on. Dealer's choice. You choose which one you want to talk about first. We got the New York City ICE protests that were happening this past weekend. Lots of video coming around. I'll splice that in and post about all these different videos that were coming out. We got those that happened over Thanksgiving weekend. We got the story in Minnesota about the Somali fraud scheme, that they stole $1 billion out of taxpayer money because they came in and they used the DEI and all these different things, and they basically frauded the government, and it allowed it to happen under Tim Walz, almost Vice President Tim Walz, allowed it to happen, because you can't go against the Somali community. That would sound racist. That's number 2. And number 3 is these 2 terrorist attacks. One was a terrorist attack. One was an almost terrorist attack by Afghan nationals who were let in during the Biden administration, who worked with Americans in Afghanistan. So they were let into America along with around 10,000 other refugees when Biden disastrously pulled out of Afghanistan. And we have to figure out, wait, is this like a real problem? Do we have to worry about this? Do we have to worry about these 10,000 people? What's going to happen? So, your take, dealer's choice. What do you want to talk about first?
Okay, Bob, you gave me 3 amazing options there. I'm going to go for door number 3. I want to start with Afghanistan. I got to start there.
Got to start with Afghanistan.
Horrible tragedy.
Terrible, really awful. And I heard that the one woman died. The woman died. The National Guard's woman died of her injuries. And we're praying for the survivor right now. Last I heard, he was in critical condition. We're praying for his safety and his recovery. So that's in Washington. And in Texas, there was a video. Somebody was going to put out a car bomb. He got caught. I love it when people broadcast their would-be crimes. It makes it really easy for the police. but to catch them. And when they do, by the way, how many times have we heard they're on the FBI's radar and nothing happens? But this time,
exactly.
This time the guy got
exactly.
caught. So tell me. So what should we do about Afghanistan nationalists?
So a couple points. So number one, you read my mind. Sometimes they have to broadcast because the FBI getting called by like 7 of their closest relatives saying he's got an awful lot of ammunition, gunpowder, and TNT, in what's C3, what's that stuff called, under his bed. Like he has enough to blow up like a building, and the FBI comes down, checks it out, interviews, everything's good. So like sometimes it makes you crazy, the lack of law, and I respect the FBI, but they're always on the radar. Every single mass shooter, every single bomber was on the FBI's radar at some point. But we'll put that aside. Afghanistan, a couple of points. Number one, this is our worst nightmare because you and myself, when the botched withdrawal was going on, and then that horrible story, Bagram, that horrible bombing, and they started literally, there were people, remember this, dangling onto the wings of airplanes to get out of there. And the Biden administration said, and then they blamed Trump as though he were somehow involved. He wasn't the president. And the Biden administration said, hey, everybody who can, if you're connected in any way, get on planes, vetting out the window. So this was our fear. We predicted this at the time, that something like this could happen. The scare part is how many more are there out there. But this is 100% squarely on Biden because we're not Monday morning quarterbacking this. At the time, we said, how are you going to vet these people? Now you're going to tell me, well, but he was CIA. He was an operative, so he was already vetted. Well, that makes it worse, not better. That shows you another one of our fears, which is that the vetting process, how do you vet an Afghan national? They tell me he was radicalized. I love it. Radicalized in the United States of America. Well, how come people from Kentucky don't get radicalized to Islam, to extremism in America? Why does it only happen somebody who already has the culture and is already coming from there? So I don't even know what to believe. But all I know is you're bringing in people who are literally, they were immersed in Taliban and in Al-Qaeda culture for years and years, their whole lives. And the fact that they happen to be vetted by the CIA to be an informant over there, who do you think the CIA uses as informants? People who are connected, because otherwise they're not going to be able to do much informing. So look, I don't want to politicize a horrible, unspeakable tragedy. Like you said, somebody's still in the hospital, family's mourning right now, but it squarely falls on Biden. Trump has suspended all the asylum stuff and whatever. And, Trump is now going to be very, very extremely careful. But you asked, do we need to be concerned about the other 10,000? If it's only 10,000, we absolutely have to be concerned.
Yeah, I think that I'm going to push back on you a little bit because it's very easy for someone these days in Kentucky, maybe not Kentucky, because Kentucky is still a pretty good place, but in the middle of the country and especially in the coasts, people could just get radicalized to Islam. You're seeing that all the time over here. In New York City, you're seeing people who have no religious affiliation in any way, shape, or form. They grew up in atheist households. They don't know what's going on. They have no connection to any spirituality. And then they see these other people who are so passionate. They're praying 5 times a day. They believe in something. There's a community there. And they're getting drawn into it because they're lacking something in their lives. And I think it actually speaks a lot to the failure of America in the latter half of the 20th century, beginning in 21st century, the rejection of Christian values for a lot of people, the rejection of religion, the rejection of the nuclear family, and people it's been a couple generations that have dealt with that, with lowest church attendance, low synagogue attendance. I mean, we always talk about how 90% or 85% of Jews in America are of no religious affiliation, and that's why they get pulled into the anti-Zionist stuff, in my opinion, is because they're looking for a community. They're seeking it out. I mean, and I think the same thing is true with the Groyper Army. They're all looking for community. And so a lot of times people get pulled into the Muslim community for that same reason, because they're seeking something out. So I don't know how this guy got radicalized in America, or if he was radicalized before, or when, or what. I mean, all indications say that he was radicalized here. He's been here since 2021, so he's been here for 4 years. In 2 of those 4 years, there was a war going on in Israel in which Jews were demonized, in which, people from Gaza were considered the highest form of victims, which makes you feel like you need to do something about that if you have any kind of kinship to that kind of ideology. And you feel anything, if you're watching Miss Rachel with your kids, and then she's putting out all this pro-Hamas propaganda, and you're feeling something. Then you see that Trump is sending the National Guard into Washington, D.C. Democrats are telling you, the same people you've been listening to are telling you that this is modern day Gestapo and we have to stop the Holocaust from happening and all this, and you're hearing all this same thing and something snaps. I mean,
100%.
And what we're doing is we're setting our house filled with dynamite, basically, and hoping nobody drops a candle. I mean, nobody, like, there's no sparks that go off. Like, that's basically what we're doing around this country. We're littering, tens of thousands of people. Now, I actually, at the time of the Afghanistan withdrawal, when I was bashing Biden, one of the reasons I was bashing him so hard is because he wasn't working hard enough to make sure that our Americans were getting out, that our Afghan allies who were being targeted by the Taliban for murder were getting out of Afghanistan. At the time, I was very concerned about that. And because he did such a terrible job pulling out from Afghanistan, that we don't even know how many people were killed by the Taliban. Besides there's 30 million people. There's 17 million women who are subjugated by the Taliban because of him. And now we have this whole mess going on over here. So I mean, like, Joe Biden, man, the curse that keeps on cursing. I mean, this guy, what did he do to us? I mean, his 4 years, they're going to go down. I mean, worse since Jimmy Carter.
Horrible. It's horrible. And by the way, add to the fact that Biden presented the Taliban with billions of dollars in high-tech military equipment that they were able to grab, and that China was able to reverse engineer, and who knows what else. I mean, what a disaster, what a nightmare. Not to mention all the service members who were killed in that attack, like I mentioned earlier. Moshe, I'm telling you, 100%, it's just, it's unbelievable. I mean, and then there was that attack. They scapegoated. They found an innocent man who was pulling water bottles out of his trunk, water tanks, and they bombed him. I don't know if you remember that. And then a bunch of kids were bombed as well. I mean, it's crazy. A listener of mine pointed out that Trump is under fire right now for blowing up drug cartels who are killing Americans.
Yep.
And Biden goes and bombs a bunch of innocent Muslims in Afghanistan. They knew that they were innocent, and they literally just had to pick somebody because they were under the gun. They were looking like foolish because they couldn't find the actual people behind that attack. And he kills innocent people. The media totally whitewashes it the same way they whitewashed, his mental decline, all that stuff. Getting back to, your point about immigration in general and about this kind of disastrous. And I know, like you mentioned, there's the other two huge topics we haven't even touched on. But you mentioned, and yeah, that botched Afghanistan withdrawal. I mean, it's sickening. I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, it was like we're seeing the disaster unfold before our eyes. Like you said, the Americans that were trapped there, that Biden actually left to be killed, or who knows what, all the women, all the human rights stuff. I mean, like, we literally had it under our control. It wasn't great, it wasn't pretty, but it was like, it was under control. And one of the many things that Biden totally made a catastrophe of, that he doesn't get the blame for. But I do want to mention something about President Trump. You mentioned it right at the outset about Trump, call it shutting down the border, cracking down on the border. Another big lie that the media tells that I can't stand is when they say that Trump is anti-immigrant. Trump is anti-immigration, because Trump, he's so supportive of immigrants and immigration, putting aside his wife being an immigrant and putting aside, the President Trump was defending. He was literally debated Laura Ingraham about the H-1B visas. Trump, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, was furious with Trump. Now, of course, she's on her way out. And there's so many MAGA conservatives, like you said, America First conservatives, who have an issue with Trump that he's actually too pro-migrant. Do you believe that? And you'll say, well, why? What about MAGA? And what they don't understand is that Trump understands that migrants and immigrants who come to the country through the right process, who are vetted properly, who are, the public charge rules, who are not going to be like sucking our money, but actually generating money and going to work for Elon Musk, going to work for, Silicon Valley. These people are golden for the United States. Trump recognizes that. He loves immigrants. It's just that he doesn't want people coming to our country who are going to carry out these kinds of attacks, and we're going to protest and join the colleges and literally try to destroy America.
Yeah, I mean, there's two things about Trump's view on immigration, which is 100% correct. One is they cannot be on welfare. When the second they land one step on the shores of America and they get on the welfare system. I mean, this is not what it was like, when everyone talks about, well, we're a nation founded by immigrants. We're a nation built by immigrants. Like, first of all, we're not a nation founded by immigrants. That is a lie. Anyone who says that is lying to you. We are a nation founded by people who were born here. There are 7 founding fathers that we consider. I looked this up the other day because I wrote it in my article. We have 7 founding fathers, people that are considered founding fathers. 6 of them were born in this country. All right? One of them was born out. There are 56 people who signed the Declaration of Independence. 8 of them were not born in this country. So everyone else was born in this country. Okay, so you're saying that we founded by immigrants. We were not founded by immigrants. Now, settlers founded this before, 250 years before the country was founded. There were settlers who built this up, but a settler is not an immigrant. They are very different things. One thing about immigrants, the major difference between settlers and immigrants, and this is something that occurs in Israel also, is that the major difference between settlers and immigrants is settlers come to a land, immigrants come to a country. Like, this is a sovereign nation with borders and rules, and before they had the massive welfare system, we would invited immigrants. First of all, to pretend that it was just open immigration in the latter half of the 19th or beginning of the 20th century is just a lie. And pretending that everyone was welcomed with open arms, they didn't have any problems, also a lie. Everyone had a hard time. There was a lot of growing pains when you're moving to a new country, especially in large numbers, but they were compatible with the United States. They were compatible with the philosophy and the promise of the United States, and they weren't getting welfare. They had to sink or swim on their own, and they learned to love America because of that. The opportunity made them love America, but everyone comes in now and they just want to take from America. They're not compatible with the culture. They're taking from America. And they hate America for it. They're like spoiled children. So let's talk about the Somali issue right now.
Yeah.
I mean, they come into Ilhan Omar is the perfect example of this. She comes from a war-torn, ravaged country as a refugee. She works her way into the federal government. All right. I mean, marry her brother, whatever it is, like whatever. She becomes a congresswoman from Minnesota. She hates this country. Like, that's insane. She hates it. Where would she be if she was still in Somalia?
Yeah.
And then you have the people who basically frauded our country. I mean, your take, man. Go for it.
No, it's absolutely crazy. First of all, I just want to mention that those statistics you had about the Constitution and about the Founding Fathers before, fascinating. I was not aware of that. If I cannot find anything to put in my column this coming week, I may have to steal that and include that in there. So I'm just giving you the disclaimer. Like,
go for it.
Not even stealing now because I told you. Now,
it's an homage. It's an homage.
Good stuff. Now, where did you? Yeah, exactly. It's just insane what happened in Minnesota with this. You said $1 billion, and $1 billion means like we discovered $1 billion. Okay, maybe Doge and maybe Elon Musk and his people came up with a lot of that stuff back when they were still around. Because I imagine it's got to be 10 or 20 times that. For Tim Walz now to be going, this is, I guess, a side issue. But like, they're all upset. These politically correct people are upset that Trump used a certain term. It's your show. I don't want to, use the term, the R word, to refer to Tim Walz. But like, are we really all like that, like frail and flimsy and that pathetic that like we can't handle Trump using a word? Which, by the way, if you watch Tim Walz on CNN, you cannot help but it crosses your mind that what is with the mannerisms and what is with he has this like I guess whatever. Okay. Anyway,
he was very strange on the campaign trail too. He was very strange on the campaign trail.
He was a weird guy. He and his wife and the handshake. There was a lot of very bizarre things in the Walz family that I wish it was never exposed to. But for Walz not to go and start taking credit for putting people in jail when either this is the most egregious negligence I mean, as you said, this is not like some like widespread fraud that crossed like lots of different cultures and different. This is targeted. You had Somali. I mean, facilities. It was the Somali community. There's that literally is the community. I'm not even getting into ethnicity right now. That's the country of origin, where these people who committed billions in fraud, hundreds of millions, let's call it to be accurate, at least, and they're pumping it. This is money that was meant for special needs children, I believe. I didn't follow all the details of this, but you're talking about like this is like government funding, the stuff that the liberals, socialists like the squad, like Ilhan Omar, are telling us we need to be giving more. How dare we cut? By the way, I just an aside, but you made me think of this before. Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries shut down the government, which hurt a lot of people, and endangered food stamps and all these social programs. Why? To give illegals Medicaid coverage, because they're upset that Trump cut healthcare coverage for illegals. So shows you which side of the spectrum. Here you have Trump saying, hey, listen, you're going to come to the country and suck our tax dollars when we're $37 trillion in debt. That's really not what we need right now. We need you to contribute, not to leech. And you have the Democrats polar opposite, taking these stands, which are super unpopular with their voters, I would add, but the stands of we need to fight. We need to literally hurt Americans by shutting down the government because the people who snuck in, who don't have a right to, Moshe, like this stuff that I'm saying right now, I would not believe it if I didn't know it firsthand. So getting back to this Minnesota fraud situation, then I'll let get this back to you. And it's like, I should make a disclaimer. I'm used to hosting the show, and I love being on this side. I'm having the time of my life, but I don't want to monopolize. I want to be
totally
really
fine.
Careful. Even when you're on my show, I have something to monopolize.
I always monopolize when I'm on your show. I talk for a half hour straight.
Well, yeah. And that's true, but it really works well. So my point is that Tim Walz is one of two options over here. Either he is extremely negligent, allowing this stuff to go on because it didn't happen in other states. It didn't happen in Florida under Ron DeSantis. It didn't happen, in North and South Dakota. So, or potentially he may even be corrupt, and he may even be somehow complicit in this. I'm not going there, but there have been suspicions, there have been allegations. So allegedly, that's not something that can be off the table. But the point is, you look at the people, the leftists, the radical left, the woke radical left, and they talk about socialism. And socialism, what they mean is, hey, let's spend your money and on these programs. And now it's let's embezzle that money and let's actually pocket it for ourselves. Kind of similar to what Vladimir Zelensky, what his corrupt government does in Ukraine. There's another very important point here. When you're talking about, like I said, we're not talking about immigration. We're talking about, because I love immigrants and I love immigration, and my very close relatives are immigrants. I wouldn't be in this country if it weren't for immigrants, allowing immigrants in. I'm fine with that. We're talking about this culture of gaming the system, of using every loophole to get into the country, whether it's legally or illegally, and then trying to undermine America. They're toxic. They are toxic to the United States. And on that note, I heard Ben Shapiro say several weeks ago, he made a great point right before Mamdani was elected. He was interviewed somewhere, and he said, do you know why Mamdani is so popular? Mamdani is so popular in New York City. If you look at the migrants versus native vote in New York City, without the migrant vote, without the foreigner vote, and their descendants or whatever, Mamdani wouldn't even have a chance to win, which tells you that the vetting process, even for legal immigration right now, that was it gave me the chills to think about that. We're literally inviting people in who are going to elect politicians who are harmful to our country. And that is terrifying. And that's on us. That means the system is broken. It's not broken. It's just decrepit.
Yeah, I mean, the stat that you're talking about is the longer you lived in New York City, the less likely you were to vote for Mamdani. I mean, which is crazy if you think about that just as a concept. Okay, you're going to vote for the socialist, leftist, anti-American, anti-Jewish person because you associate with him, you associate with his third worldness. And let's just say, New York City is home to around 3 million immigrants and probably around 500,000 illegal immigrants. And you want to talk about an affordability crisis in New York City. If you get rid of the illegals, let's say there's 10 people living in every apartment. Okay, fine. Yeah, they don't each live in single family homes, because there's 500,000 of them. Let's say there's 10 people in every apartment. Okay. That's, you're cramming everyone into an apartment. So now you have 20,000 apartments that are taken up by illegals. Empty those out. Doesn't that help your affordability crisis just a little bit? I mean,
That's a good point.
not to mention all the utilities that they're using up, the food, the everything else. That's coming up because of that. And by the way, this is the transition into the New York City ICE raids. Because because we're dealing with ICE is trying to get people out. Tom Homan originally said, "We need you to give us access to your jail so we can get rid of criminals. And if you're not going to do that, we're going to go into your communities." And that's what he said. And every single sanctuary city said, "We're not giving you access to the jails." There's over 7,000 illegals in New York City jails right now. Over 7,000. Why aren't they being deported? Because New York City is a sanctuary city. And now you have protesters getting into physical altercations with the NYPD, who are trying to be the barrier between these protesters and ICE, federal law enforcement, and they're getting attacked. NYPD is getting attacked. And who are the New York City politicians yelling at? They're yelling at Jessica Tisch, the NYPD commissioner. They're yelling at the NYPD. They're praising the protesters. They're yelling at ICE. I mean, we're living in the upside down world.
It is. It's the bizarre world, the upside down, the crazy world where ICE, these people are putting themselves, risking their lives, just to protect, to fulfill the constitutional duty that these woke radical leftists, these people, whether it's even Eric Adams, who I know some conservatives suddenly decided they like Eric Adams because, I don't know, he got indicted maybe on bad charges and then Trump, pardoned him or whatever. I mean, whether it's Chicago Brandon Johnson, whether it's Karen Bass, like literally, I mean, Washington, D.C. and Bowser, these cities are being run down. They're being destroyed and by the politicians who are allowing this stuff to go on. And what's ICE doing? Innocently following the Constitution, upholding the rule of law, listening to the commander in chief, and they get, I mean, that app, right? I mean, AOC, she she spread around that app or whatever. She's alerts communities, hey, by the way, ICE is coming, as though they're these evil people, and she's trying to defend against them, which, by the way, that itself might be obstruction. I don't know whatever happened with that. I'm very disappointed in the DOJ, who are just suddenly absolving. I mean, they forgot about the Epstein files. They forgot about cocaine in the White House. And, they're not investigating AOC enough, but that's a story for another day. But, when is Liz Cheney going to get indicted? When is Adam Schiff going to get indicted? But sorry, Moshe, I tend to go off on these tangents. Way too much caffeine in my system. But getting back to your point with the ICE, I squarely believe, with the illegals in New York City, and like you said, all the crises that are totally exacerbated. You know where that comes from? And again, I know some people defend Eric Adams. Eric Adams was the ultimate sanctuary mayor. Eric Adams opened up this beautiful Roosevelt Hotel, and he handed, you remember when they put flyers? Do you remember this? Because you know all this stuff. They put flyers in Mexico, in Texas, at the Mexican border. Eric Adams had Spanish language flyers put up that said, "Do not come to New York City. Whatever you do not come," telling illegals that when they come across, do not come to New York City. We don't want you. Now, I have news for you. Galveston, Texas, Memphis, Tennessee, North Dakota, they didn't have to put up signs at the Mexican border in Spanish that said, "Don't come here." Florida, Boca Raton. You know why? Because illegals aren't coming there, because they're not giving them free hotel, free food, when the city's bankrupt, by the way, using federal dollars, and a $500 Visa card, prepaid Visa card. You remember that? Every month, they gave the illegals, Eric Adams, a $500 prepaid Visa card. And you know what they said? They said, but you cannot use it, Moshe. I wouldn't believe it. I'm telling you, if I came from Mars and you told me this, I'd say you're crazy. If they put this in a movie, I'd say, what a dumb, unrealistic movie. $500 prepaid Visa card, but you cannot use it for alcohol or tobacco or cigarettes. You cannot, okay? Well, how are you going to know? It's not like food stamps. It's a Visa card. How are you going to know if I used it? Honor system. You got to use the honor system. You got to promise. You got to tell us, really, really, you're not going to use it for alcohol. And I read this and I said, we're doomed. We are doomed. So that's where all the issues start in New York City. Then Eric Adams woke up and realized, oh my gosh, Cuomo's going to beat me. Before Mamdani came along, and he's like, oh my gosh, the city's riddled with crime, shoplifting's out of control, gun violence. Alvin Bragg ain't doing anything about it, and Eric Adams decided to crack down too little, too late. If he had made the city safe, if he had done what Giuliani did back in the days, Eric Adams actually would have been able to figure out how to win a primary. But he was super unpopular because of these terrible policies. As far as the ICE goes and the anti-ICE protesters, I mean, it's unbelievable. In general, all these protests, I mean, you tell me, but I was just reading in, I think the New York Post, I was just reading how they keep magically finding these anti-ICE protesters. They're what they call these professional protesters. In other words, they're finding anti-ICE protesters who, like a year or two ago, were protesting in favor of Hamas or were BLM riots. Like, they literally find these protesters who they just appear again and again. Now, are you telling me that this is like some kind of just like random pop-up protest? I mean, isn't it so obvious that this thing is being organized? And whether it's George Soros or whoever is funding this stuff, this is organized. It's a coordinated effort, and it's designed to, I don't have to tell you, it's designed to really seep into culture. It's designed to basically target ICE and target Trump, and to make the vocal minority. Because I really believe a lot of Democrats do not dislike ICE, but it gives this appearance of like somehow Trump is evil and ICE is evil, and it's really very sad.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I remember going to protests. I've been going to protests since I'm a teenager. I went to a very Zionist school. We had they were very activist. Our high school would organize their own protests, and protests are actually somewhat organized. I mean, you have a barrier, you have a police presence, you call the media to come in and ask you questions because you want to get the news out there, you want to be available, and you're on the side, and you're not leaving your barriered area. You know what you're talking about, and they would bring us over there. They'd say, okay, this is what we're doing. This is why we're doing it. If anyone asks you any questions, this is what you say. If you don't want to say anything, you just say, please, I'm not comfortable. Just go talk to someone else. I mean, this is just very rote standards of protesting in America. This is how you do it. Okay? These people don't do that at all. They block traffic, they obstruct justice, they attack police officers, they don't want to talk to the media, which is interesting, by the way, because A, they don't know what they're talking about, or B, they know that they're going to sound insane. So they just want their people to see the passion. That's all we need to show you, not right. What we're actually doing, but how we're passionate about it. And then you see every single one of these protests, you see people trying to get their kids to school, trying to get to work, trying to live their lives. And these protesters are saying, don't you understand? We're saving you. We're protecting your interests because we care about Palestinians in Gaza, or we care about BLM, and these are all young white kids living off their parents' credit cards. I mean, if not getting a stipend check from whatever big protest company, Yeah. And so, but we're saving you, we're protecting you, and we're protecting you from ICE. And the woman who's trying to take her kids to school is like, I don't need protection from ICE. I need to get my kids to school. I need to go buy groceries. I need to get to work. Like, they don't care about that. They don't care about regular people. And it really is absolutely disgusting the way they're acting. I mean, some of these videos, I mean, I'm gonna put these in post. I'm gonna show the videos. I'm
imagining them right now. I'm picturing them.
Picture them. But some of these videos are sick. I mean, these people are, first of all, just cursing at anyone who curses at cops just on the street, calls them names. You're automatically out in my book. All right? These people are putting their lives on the line to protect us. And the only time I don't like a cop is when they're writing me a speeding ticket, because I do speed a lot. I've stopped in my later years. But even that guy, I still say thank you, by the way. Thank you for keeping the road safe from me. But it's not just enough to support the police. You got to thank the police for protecting you from these people. And it absolutely is insane what's been going on in New York City. I think, and it's all across the country with these ICE raids. I mean, they are enforcing the law, and people wonder why people in ICE want to wear masks and they don't want their faces to be seen, because I think that they know that all these videos are going to be collected by a future Democrat DOJ, and they're going to be prosecuted. I feel like I even saw, I think Hakeem Jeffries said something to the effect of, I think he was talking about the military thing in Venezuela, but they said there's a statute of limitations on this stuff of like 5 years. And I think they're just biding their time. They're hoping that a Democrat wins the presidency in 2028. and then they can just prosecute ICE officers for literally doing their job. I mean,
Wow.
and so imagine your face is on video, and then, it's one thing because they know who is going out into the field. There's a roster or whatever. But you go into the field, you get a protester comes and attacks you. You take out your pepper spray, you knock them to the ground, you detain them or whatever. All of a sudden, 4 or 5 years later, a Democrat DOJ is prosecuting you because you were just implementing the law. I mean, I wouldn't put it past them. Would you put it past them?
No, I never thought about it. Absolutely not. Would not put it past them. That's exactly their playbook. This is exactly what they do. Is they any way they can to, they don't care. They play dirty. Any law they can use against someone, they will use. They make it up. They conjure it up. Anytime they can get off, despite doing all sorts of illegalities, they'll find some loopholes, like it's happening right now with Comey and Letitia James. Do you remember a few months ago, an Iranian woman, there was this Iranian family. This woman, she came to the United States when she was 3 years old, but she's an Iranian national. And because of the strike on Iran, she got on the radar. Any Iranian Americans got on the radar. So she's a naturalized citizen. Came 3 years old. Her husband is American. Her kids are American. And she was ripped. ICE came and ripped her out of her own kitchen or something like that. They came to her house and they took her away from her kids and they put her in some kind of detention center. She was there. I don't know what ended up happening. She was actually there for several days when I read this story. The story was all over the place. How they came to the husband and the media and they said, your wife was detained by ICE, evil ICE. She's been in America since she's 3 years old. And the husband says, you know what? I actually respect President Trump because even though I miss my wife and I wish she was here and it's horrible for our family, this is the right thing because Iran right now is a threat. They're worried about Iranian terror cells because it was right after the strikes on the nukes. And ICE is actually doing the right thing. And they interviewed the wife at some point. The wife, they were able to get her on the phone. And she's like, yeah, listen, I respect President Trump. I wish I didn't have to be suffering like this, but I would do the same thing. And the media was like, how can you say? The media was like having a meltdown, trying to egg these people, trying to incite these people to bash Trump. And they're like, yeah, you know what? Sometimes you need to enforce the law, even in ways that make people suffer, even when it's unfair. I was amazed. I hope that had a happy ending because I felt bad for her. Again, I respected what they were saying. It's a tough situation. Nobody would want to trade places, but ICE is the good guys. We have a problem in America. Is like you said, they think the bad guys are the good guys. The people who are embezzling money in the Somali community in Minnesota and criminals who are shoplifting under $900. Hey, look, everyone needs a stereo. Everyone needs a Discman. Everyone needs an MP3 player. And then they think they're targeting the good people. National Guard troops shot by a guy who never should have been allowed in this country. Moshe, it's, I want to end on a positive note if whenever this comes to an end, but it's sad. This is not the America that we grew up in. By the way, I never went to a protest. I don't know which protest you were going to. I'm actually very curious. The closest thing I ever came to a protest was standing outside the pizza shop, still hungry, and telling my parents I was not getting in the car until they buy me a third slice of pizza because I'm starving. So that was, but it sounds like you had a more interesting childhood than me.
I went to a lot of protests. We actually had a thing where we would find old SS soldiers who were living in America in Queens or whatever, and we would go to their house and protest them. And
whoa,
yeah, and
that's cool.
And then it was interesting. And then there were some things like the Jewish Museum had there was an issue there, and we protested there. We protested at JFK Airport when Air France did something anti-Semitic. We've done a bunch of stuff. And then I would go to a lot of the protests at the UN in the early 2000s. Those are all the rage back then. It was the Intifada, so of course they were going after Israel. So we'd go to those. Actually, I went, but I still remember to this day. I was at the UN. We were protesting, and who was speaking at the podium on behalf of Israel and bashing the UN was one Curtis Sliwa, standing at the podium saying the greatest stuff I've ever heard. He had a pamphlet or something that people were handing out. I had him sign it. I was waiting by the gate, and I had him sign it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I was searching my parents' house for it. So when I saw Curtis years later, I've met Curtis many times in the last few years.
Sure.
I told him that story. He's like, yeah, I remember that UN protest. Yeah, he obviously didn't remember me. I was a kid. I was 13, 14 years old. But yeah, this was pretty common. But yes, protests are a normal part of American politics and American life. But you do it the wrong way. I mean, it's just it doesn't help anyone. It really doesn't. All it does is it hurts your own side. And honestly, I want their side to be hurt. So you know what, guys? Keep it going, because you're not bringing anyone to your side this way. You really aren't. And you know they all just want to get arrested. They want to get arrested so badly. Oh, my gosh, because there's no downside for them. They get a desk appearance ticket. They probably won't even have to pay a fine. They probably won't even get any community service. But they'll have it forever. I got arrested. You know, that's what they'll talk about. All right.
Mostly peaceful. On that note, do you remember when AOC, there was a protest a few years ago, I don't remember why, in Washington, D.C., and AOC and a couple of other Democrats sat in on it, and then the authorities came and they led AOC away. She put her hands behind her back. You can take this video as though, but they did a close-up. There was no
handcuffs. I know. She like waved. She waved and then put her hands back. I know.
There's our positive note.
Oh my God. That's our next president, guys. Oh my.
It is. The next nominee.
President AOC 2028. We know it's going to happen. Oh my gosh. God help us. All right. Yaakov M Show. You can find him on Spotify on 24/6. He's a columnist. Read Ami Magazine. You'll see him over there. Yaakov, thank you so much for joining us tonight. This is a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. A thrill. I'm telling you, I love you, Moshe.
Oh, I love you too, buddy. We're going to have to switch the cameras. We'll come back. I'll come back on your show. You'll come back on my show. It'll be great.
I loved it. So much fun.
All right. All right. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.